Okay, I am out here with the TopRC Hobby Lightning V2 1.5 meter wingspan sport glider. This is courtesy of Banggood. I want to thank them much for sending this for review. So, got it all set up. I didn't have any guidance on the control surface deflection, so we'll see how that works out. But maiden launch of the sport glider. So I did have to make one modification to it. I did have to put a front skid on this rather than landing it on its belly out here in this rough terrain. So other than that, that's the only modification I made to it. Let's see where the wind is coming from. All right, let's see if we can get it in the air. That was pretty iffy. Not sure I have enough elevator in it. Throttle off. Look at that cut through the air. I launched it at 50% throttle. I'm thinking maybe 60. I want to see how much elevator authority I've got here. Oh, not bad. And I've got the CG balanced at 53 millimeters from the leading edge. Their guidance on that was 50 to 60 millimeters. Oh yeah, I got plenty of elevator. Throttle's off. Man, that sails through the air. This is my first sport glider. Now, I maintain a little altitude on it until I get comfortable with it. Not a bad roll rate either. Throttle's off. Wow. That is sweet. Throttle's off. Throttle's on. I tell you, my throws aren't that far off, I don't think. Stay out of the sun. That is pretty impressive, guys. I'm pretty nervous on the controls, this being my first large sport glider. Look at that, cut through the air with no throttle. Not as good a roll rate to the right, I don't think. Uh-oh. Haptic is already, it's already been 5 minutes. That's awesome. And I'm just flying at bank and yank right now. Timer 1 elapsed. Okay, so I've got to see how long it's going to take to get this set down. Alright, so let's come over here and see how far out we're going to have to go to get this on the ground. But successful maiden flight. I'm pretty nervous on the controls, but man, that is awesome. Oh, we got somebody coming. All right. All right, I am off the throttle. Yeah, I am definitely glad I put that front skid on there. All right. That was a successful maiden. I was very nervous on the controls. I need to do a little bit of fine tuning so I can really bring it out and put it through the paces. But man, that is a high performance sport glider. I'm very impressed with the build quality of this plane. So I'm going to go ahead and get some practice on it, and then I'm going to put some battery packs through it, get some practice on it, and then bring it back out so we can put it more through the paces, because this thing is certainly capable of doing much, much more than I demonstrated this morning. But I just wanted to make sure that I had my control surfaces set up, that I didn't have too much or too little control on the control surfaces. I got a good roll rate to the left. I'm going to have to adjust the linkage, I guess, get a little better roll rate to the right. But very, very happy with this. Man, that is awesome. It can pull through huge loops, split S maneuvers, rolls. I didn't even test out the rudder yet. I was having so much fun just flying it bank and yank. But I imagine this could do pretty good stall turns too. Anyway, I will meet you back at the hangar, and I will give you the information, some tips, and the specs on this plane. So see you back at the hangar.
Welcome to ground control, and look at what just arrived at the ground control hangar. This is the TopRC Hobby Lightning V2 high performance sport glider. Ooh, I know I'm going to have, the way I like to fly, I know I am going to have a lot of fun with this plane. This plane is courtesy of Banggood. I want to thank Banggood very much for sending me this high performance sport glider for review. This is awesome. Okay, so let me give you some specs on this plane first, and then I'll show you everything that comes in the box. This is a plug-and-fly version of the plane. Okay, so it's made out of extremely dense EPO foam. I mean, everything is very, very rigid on it, very, very dense foam. 1.5 meter wingspan. The fuselage length is just over a meter. The weight it has listed at 915 grams. The motor is a C2836, 1250 kV. It has a 40 amp speed controller with an XT60 connector in it. It comes with 4 9-gram digital Metal Gear servos. I love seeing that in there. It has a propeller that's a 10 by 7 folding prop on it, and it lists the thrust as a 1-to-1. So should have some power for doing loops and split S maneuvers and stuff like that. This is specifically for a 3S power system, and it recommends the 3S 2200 milliamp hour 25C LiPo, and I have several of those, and I also have some 40C 2200 milliamp 3S LiPos. It requires a minimum of 4-channel receiver of your choice. The assembly on this is going to be about as easy as an assembly as you've ever seen for a plane this size. It comes with a nice color manual, has some basic information in there. They did label all, everything's all pre-installed except for the elevator / horizontal stabilizer assembly and the main wing. And that's basically all you have to do. Once you get your receiver installed and get everything programmed, that's it. So it's pretty informative, except they did not provide recommended control surface setup for your initial flight, and I would really like to see that. So I sent the TopRC hobby an email asking them for that information before I throw it in the air, because I don't want to have too little or too much control when I first throw it in the air. So hopefully they'll get back to me with that information. Okay, so it comes with the plane, the fuselage, the main wing, horizontal stabilizer, everything else is already installed. We got a semi-opaque canopy, and I'll talk more about this in just a minute. You only have 2 main screws to put into this thing, and that's to hold the main wing on. The main wing